Good evening. I'm David Tomney here with the Rangers Journal in association with the charity Man On. We're here with our Wednesday night edition of the podcast. We're going to speak a lot about some different things that are affecting Rangers and football in general. I'm joined by two great guests this evening. Davey from Gallant Pioneers and Stevie Wilson. Start with you, Davey. How are you this evening? You okay, pal?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, obviously, the countdown has begun to Saturday lunchtime, which the game is on for real. So, I mean, bring it on. I think I'm actually quietly confident. I wouldn't say well, maybe not confident, but certainly I think we've got a shout here. I think it's on a knife edge. So I don't think they're a great side. So I think we've got a chance here. So I'm hoping that we can do this, because it would be someday if we can. It's going to be someday.
No, I agree. I think that's how Old Firm week starts, isn't it? You're nice and confident at the beginning of the week, and then the further it gets to it, oh no, what's going to happen here? But we'll have a little chat about that game towards the end. So yeah, keep your thoughts on that, Davey. And Stephen, nice of you to join us tonight. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Good, thanks. Yeah, Old Firm week is always something. I'm currently in the not fairly confident category, but sometimes I think that's a better place to be going into the game, because your expectations aren't over high. I was very confident going into the game last month, and that confidence sunk dramatically within the space of 30 seconds. So we'll see how they hopefully. Davey is right, though. They're not a great team. We just make them look good. So hopefully somebody gets their head screwed on.
That's it. That's it. So tonight we're going to we're going to have a chat really about VAR and referees, and we've got Gary, who's our Grade 1 official, who's going to be joining us in about 15-20 minutes time to discuss some of the incidents over the weekend. So obviously coming up to an Old Firm game, it's quite predictable that we're talking about controversial Rangers decisions and VAR the week prior to it. So it's been a big thing, especially over the last couple of months. So I'll start off, Davey. What's your opinions on VAR in general? How do you find it? You a fan of it, or would you rather it not be part of the game?
No, I'm very much a fan. So it's we have. I mean, the game on Sunday, we had obviously a few issues. The first 20 minutes with the VR, and it's time consuming. But for me, it's all about getting the decision correct at the end of the day. And I know people will say, and look at the last Old Firm game when we scored the two with what we thought was the equaliser. Right after we'd scoring the first goal. I mean, I'm in the club deck at Ibrox, and the club deck shook. Such was the reaction to that goal, which turned out not to be a goal, because it then rewound back to the free kick. And so people say, it doesn't, it takes away from that kind of spontaneous burst of emotion. And for me, I think it's all about getting the decision correct. And if that takes a wee bit longer, then, ultimately, I think, mentioning dare I say it, sporting integrity. Because if we have, arrived at the correct decision at the end of the day, sacrificing that is, I think, for me, is worth it, because it should be the correct decision, rather than a guess by one of the officials at the time, who didn't get it correct. We've got the opportunity now to go back, review it, and make sure that we did get correct. Obviously, there's a lot riding in some of these decisions. So for me, I'm quite prepared to kind of sacrifice that kind of spontaneity, that for getting the correct decision. So I know we ended up getting 8 minutes, added on in the first half, which ultimately was to our benefit, because we scored on the eighth of those 8 minutes to take us in at one each, because it would have been a very different conversation in the dressing room had we gone in 1-0 down, but we got there and we ground them down. Well, they're now down to 10 men, so I think the writing was on the wall for Kilmarnock as soon as they went down to 10 men, and VAR helped us get to that point. Then I'm all for it. So I know people, and I've heard some people complaining, about they'd rather we did do away with it and just accept the kind of human error of the referees. I really don't get that. When we have the technology that we can correct some of these decisions, then I think we should take it. So yeah, I'm a fan, in short.
And same to you, Stephen. What's your opinions of it? I mean, when VAR first was sort of mooted and came in, how did you think it was going to be used? Do you think it's being used in the way that it was originally, touted, or do you think it's being used too much?
A bit in the middle, really. With it. I think the idea of VAR in principle is a good one, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting big decisions right. I mean, how often Rangers or any football club been stung by some terrible decisions? So to start getting that stuff right is good. I think there is obviously the point with VAR sometimes is that sometimes too hands-on with it. We saw that on Sunday. I mean, the first two VARs were absolutely ridiculous. I mean, how did it take 3 minutes to decide that Dessers was offside? I mean, come on. You could just have one look and be like, right, he's offside, play the game. They've got to try balance it between getting those decisions right and trying to get the flow of the game. I do like sometimes in the English VAR system, the referees in there are a lot better than ours at being quite transparent with some of this one, how the communication is going on. I think if we get that, it'd be brilliant. But there is a few still issues with it. I think that need to be kind of addressed. I mean, one of them is how it's conveyed to supporters in the ground. I mean, the comparison between people watching at home, exactly every single thing that's going on with it. You can see every frame, but in the stadium, I was watching it on Sunday. Every time the ball went in, my first glance would be to the ref. Is his hand at his ear? Is his arm up? What's he doing? And it's kind of like you're a bit lost with it. And I do think the other issue with VAR, particularly more in Scotland, is VAR. It's essentially the VAR to be done to help the referees. But the problem is it's ran by referees. So our referees are terrible. It's no getting away from it. So the fact that it's essentially, instead of the game being refereed by one referee, the game refereed by two, and they're not great. So I think it's a bit of progress. I think the idea of it, I think it's good. It's good for the game. But I just think how we're using it, especially up here. I think England, as I mentioned, they've improved on it so much in the last year or so. They use it so much better. But up here, it's still a lot that needs to be worked on with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a first real full season that the SPL has been using it. England have had it for a couple of years now, 2-3 years, maybe even longer than that. Actually, I think it came in just around when there was no fans in the stadiums during COVID. So yeah, 3-4 years. But we'll go on to a couple of those because there was VAR used quite a lot on Sunday. So we'll come on to a couple of those decisions, and I think it showed the good and bad of VAR. And we'll start with the very first one. The possible handball by the Kilmarnock player. From my point of view, I didn't think it was a handball. I thought the guy was that close to Sterling. It's just hit him, and I think the referee's got the decision right. So then it comes down to, is it an interpretation between the referee who's officiating on the field and then who is watching on VAR? What's your thought on that, Davey? I mean, do you think the referee got it right, or do you think there is this interpretation where the referee in the VAR maybe is putting in a little bit of pressure on the referee on the field?
Well, I look at it as that he's giving the guy on the field, some assistance. So he's got the chance to have a look at a more, thorough look at this incident rather than the referee making an instant decision and often having a guess. So I think that I'm not sure that puts any more pressure on the referee. I think it takes some of the pressure off the referee in that he's more likely to come to the correct decision with the assistance of someone who's got the chance of looking at a replay in slow motion and looking at it from different angles. So that for me is taking pressure off the referee, not putting pressure on him. So and if I think they should look at it with a view that, you often think that when they go to the monitor, you're thinking that they've actually been, so the guy who's made the decision is the guy who's looking at the replays, and very most often the referee, when he goes to the monitor, will go with, having been asked to go. He's essentially been told, you may want to have another look at this and change your mind. And mostly they do change their mind. But you can see that there's been, I think there's, with a wee bit more confidence with the referees as they get more used to it, then, I think that we saw on Saturday that the referees will have the courage of their convictions and go with their original decision. So, no, I think it's positive for me. I mean, there are weaknesses in Scotland, compared to down south. The numbers of cameras that they have at the game, the level of technology and the cost of all of that applied down south, where money is absolutely no problem for them to do all this. Whereas in Scotland, it's a bit more limited in terms of the technology. So I'm not sure whether we should be brushing up on a specification that's required to do VAR properly, or whether that's such a thing exists. I'm not sure, but I think even for what we get at the moment, I'd rather we have it than we didn't have it. So it's the Saturday. I mean, last night. Here's an instance, just an example. I'm watching Dortmund versus PSG, and obviously PSG are hammering away at Dortmund, and couldn't score against them, in the two matches. And I'm sitting there gloating, of course, thinking Rangers scored 6 times against Dortmund, when we played them only 2 years ago, and at that time thinking, well, actually we scored 7 goals, because the one that Alfredo Morelos robbed the centre back of the ball, went through, cut it back to Ryan Kent, who knocked it in, was a goal all day long. And yet when we went to VAR, they knocked that goal off. And I was thinking, well, maybe VAR isn't as good as because the goal was given at the time, and it was only called back from VAR. So that's a decision which the referee got correct, and was then, well, I take your point, Tom, that the referee may have been put under pressure here. So the referee's then referred to the monitor and changed his mind, when for me, he'd made the correct decision in the first place. And, from some certain angles, you could see that there was no way that decision should have been overturned, but it was. So I think sometimes the decision will go for you, sometimes it'll go against you. I think we're more inclined to get it right with a more considered view of an instant that's happening at breakneck speed. Sometimes the referee won't have the best angle to it. If he can be provided with further information or further advice to come to a better decision, I think that's got to be a good thing.
No, definitely. And you made a good point before, Stephen, about knowing what's going on, especially in the stadium. When you're watching it on television, you can pretty much understand what's going on. And we had commentator on a charity stream the other day, who was telling us that they hear what's going on, and he started talking about the rugby and how they do it, and everything's heard in the stadium. So it's a good shout that a way forward as fans in the stadium should be able to hear it. On that first sort of VAR call, what was your thoughts on that? Did you think it was a handball? Do you think the VAR officials were right to get the referee to come and have a look at it?
Yeah, this is the thing. It's not a penalty for the first sake. I mean, as you mentioned, the guy is so close to it. I mean, the handball rule in the modern day is ridiculous now. The amount of handball decisions that get given. And for some of the positions you get, and we've seen the one John Lundstrom got the penalty given away to Kilmarnock. I mean, I don't really know exactly what you can really do. As much as we don't obviously want to talk too much about Celtic, they had the one at Hearts, which was ridiculous as well. So it flips both sides. So this one, it's literally, it's in a natural position, very close, not much you can do about it. The issue with this one is, I get the VAR is correct in the way that they should be advising, the on-field referee if there's any sort of doubt with certain things. But this one just seems ridiculous for him to even make that decision. I mean, the referee, fair play to the referee, by the way, he didn't have his best of games, but he was strong enough to think, no, I'm still right in this one, which is, as David kind of alluded to, it's very rare. They don't really have the mental strength, some of them, to go with their own decision. But unfortunately, two of the examples they have done it with is against Rangers this season, this one here and the one Dujon Sterling a couple of months ago against Aberdeen for his red card. So it's all about. It's going back to what I was saying. Sometimes some of the referees, it's ours run by referees, and if the referee standard is not at the level it should be, then that's just still going to have issues. And for whoever was, I don't know who was on VAR at the weekend. I couldn't find it when I looked up at the weekend, but for him to make that decision, for him to go there, was baffling. And Kilmarnock will be thanking their souls that the referee did have common sense. But yeah, definitely not a penalty for me.
No, I think you're correct there. We're very quick to, throw referees under the bus. But we've got to say, fair play to him to stick with his decision and
Tomo,
basically not.
Tomo, can I just come in there?
Yeah.
I come in there just because Stephen's just mentioned the Dujon Sterling one when we played St Johnstone at McDermott Park, and I think the referee bottled it that night because that's the most penalty you ever saw in your life. So he didn't give that decision when everyone in the stadium pretty much knew that was a penalty kick, and he then relies on VAR to stop, and help him out. Whereas I think that there's a danger there that the referees, will not make decisions, even though confronted with evidence, saying, well, I'm not quite sure, but I'll just wait for that guy to make the decision for me, rather than go with, make that decision. And so there is a danger that
Sky did a great job of catching the referee's reaction to that penalty decision. Just see I can't remember who the referee's name is. I think he's, but he literally looked and he looked at that linesman, and nothing happened. And as you mentioned, it's a stone waller every day of the week. So it's just it's sometimes the fear, especially when it involves the bigger teams. Sometimes they may have fear to make that decision, because if they get the decision wrong, then because obviously sometimes if they make the decision, it's hard. It's hard sometimes to get overturned, because at least clear and obvious is the word that they use. So I think that's the problem. I think they're sometimes too reliant. They know it's there, and they're not making a decision. I think the guys in Heart and Hand made a statistic. I think we've had two, maybe 3 penalties this season where it's actually been given on the field. The majority of our penalties this season have been given by VAR, which is crazy to think of.
Yeah. I think a few weeks back, I researched it, and at that point, we'd had 15 penalties, and only 3 of them had been an on-field decision. The rest of them had been even the ones that you say, Davey, up at St Johnstone, that were most obvious penalties going to VAR. So I'll bring in Gary, who's joined us to have a wee chat. As regular viewers will know, Gary's a qualified referee and comes in to defend them from us. So how are you doing this evening, Gary? You okay?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, excellent. Doing well, thank you very much, and thank you for giving up your time to have a chat with us. So we've just started really talking about VAR and its place in football, and you came in at a good time. So we've just discussed the first VAR incident where in the first couple of minutes with Dujon Sterling and the potential handball, we're pretty much in agreement that it wasn't a handball.
Yeah.
And we're sort of wondering why, the referees made the right decision, why the VAR official would ask him to look at it again. And is it a case of an interpretation of the laws? So whoever's on VAR is thinking, I'm interpreting handball this way, so maybe the referee should have that same interpretation. I don't know if that's something that happens, but I'd be interested to get your take on it.
I think it was the right call, first of all, from David Dickinson not to give the penalty. As someone, I think it was Stephen that mentioned, it's so close to him, and his hand's not too far from his body. But I think the problem is, from a sort of fan's point of view, you've seen those decisions given in other games in the season, whether it's involving the Old Firm or not, and there's that level of inconsistency. And I think if you see that incident replayed another 5, 6, 7 times with different referees, you'll have a mixed response of penalty or no penalty. And I think what it boils down to is how precise the handball laws got, where it actually doesn't allow any common sense. So someone's got a rigid idea, okay, pretty much everything's going to be handball, and other guys have think pretty much nothing's going to be a handball if it's close to the body. So you get this wide, varied response from refs in terms of what's a penalty and what's not. So it was Stephen Kirtland was the VAR on Sunday. And he, like you say, he might go into the game this weekend coming, or a few weeks ago, he's been on a game and had a similar incident, given a penalty for it. So it's pure interpretation, but by adding all these additional rules, I don't think they've actually cleared that up. I think they've just made it even more complicated in how to explain what's a handball or not, you know?
Yeah. So then, and we'll go on to the second incident with VAR, which Stephen has touched on. As I say, I don't know if you gents were at the game or not, but watching it on TV, as soon as that ball went into Dessers, you could see he was offside. You knew he was offside, so I wasn't getting excited that anything's going to come of it. But the play goes on. He's taken down, continues for a bit longer, and then the referee points to the spot, and then the linesman puts up his flag. And I think the frustrating thing was that Dessers was so far offside, it took 3 minutes for the offside to be called. What was your view of that, Gary? Why would, in my head, are the VAR looking at the penalty call first to see if there is a foul for a penalty, and then working back to see if it's offside, or would you go to the offside straight away?
To be honest, and not taking it sort of chronological order, I don't think they should be waiting so long to pull the flag up there. It's not a tight one. It's anyone in the stand could see. You don't have to be a qualified linesman to know that. Get the flag up early and no one's in any doubt. It leads to potential misconduct further down the line, because if one of the Kilmarnock defenders comes in and desperation wipes out Dessers, he could still get yellow carded for that, even though it's offside. So you're just kind of opening the door for further misconduct. Again, if it's tight, fair enough, you want to wait, you don't want to gamble. But if it's so obvious like that, it should just be getting the flag up. What VR should be looking at is just the initial incident, which qualifies everything else. The offside's the initial incident there, because if that's offside, then nothing else really matters. It doesn't matter if it's a penalty or not. So, yeah, they should have been checking that, and it should have been done a hell of a lot quicker. That, especially that one where it doesn't need the sort of different frames to get the lines in place. Literally 10, 15 seconds, get the wide angle, miles offside, there you go, there's your decision, play on.
Yeah,
I don't know why it took so long personally.
Yeah,
I've got sympathy, because a lot of times with these type incidents, they actually take longer than people realise, but that one's not one of them.
Yeah, as I say, watching it on the TV, as soon as it went to him, it was obvious, and then I did have a chuckle when Sky put up a still of basically the lines, and you've got the Kilmarnock defender's leg, whatever it was, and then Dessers is halfway down Paisley Road West. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it was a tight call and they're putting up these things. But yeah, Davey, any thoughts on that, or do you think it's been summed up by Gary there?
Yeah, I know that I think Gary's just nailed it. I mean, it's so obvious, you know, and our expectation watching it live in the stadium is that Dessers is offside. So it's almost like it's we're just going through the motions until the plays eventually stopped and they brought it back, because everyone knew that there was no way that, you know, any Rangers attack was going to come to anything. That the whole thing had stemmed from an offside. And so no one was under any illusion that you know, there was going to be anything other than an offside decision ultimately. So the linesman could have just saved us all the hassle just by sticking his flag in the air.
Yeah, and then the third incident in the first half is again where I think it's a good side of VAR, where it shows it works. You know, Lundstrom's played the ball into Silva. He's got in, keeper's made a save, and then Sterling's, he's half been wiped out, and the ball's hit the guy's hand on the line. And again, fair play, the linesman's kept his flag down because it's been a tight call. Once the play's come to an end, he's put up his flag, and the referee's been called to VAR, and it's shown that he's onside. Silva's onside. And then everything that happens from after that, again, I think they get right. Anything on that, Gary? Anything? Do you think that's how? Do you think that's how VAR should be getting used? And and that where it is that tight and that. I mean, the referee at the time he's not awarded a penalty. Once the play's sort of come to an end, he's gave the offside, and then I'm guessing VAR have spoke to him in his ear and said, he's onside. I think you need to look at this again. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, I would say so. It's similar to the Dessers one we said, where there's a qualifying incident, if you like, and that'll be Silva being onside or off. So you check that first. Everything that's beyond that is immaterial if he's offside. As soon as they've checked he's onside, then they have to look at the incident with the handball on the line. So as soon as they've done that, they could, in theory, not have to get the referee over to the sideline to check that. It's a little bit of interpretation in terms of it's deliberate or not. But in reality, that's the sending off offence would be denying a goal. It's not even like a goal scoring opportunity. It's denying a goal by use of the hand. So it's almost like a technicality that's a red card. There's no real interpretation on that. I think what they've done is obviously bring the referee over to the sideline to sell it a bit better to the fans and probably to the Kilmarnock as well, so that this decision isn't just coming out of the blue. But yeah, in terms of what they've done, the procedure and everything, that you can't really fault them. They're spot on with it.
Yeah.
You any thoughts on that incident, Stephen? What was your view on it, and do you think it was a right call?
Yeah, I think Gary's spot on everything he says on that particular one. It's a tight call. It's one that in real time you can't blame them for classing as offside because he is on the shoulder. It's a quick bit of play as well. It's Silva in the last few weeks that's what he's done. It's kind of spun in behind and kind of made those runs. So for him to do that, he's touched, by the way. The touch is sublime as well. It kind of helps make the goal as well. It's just absolutely beautiful. That's what you paid that. That's what Will's paid that money for. Not some of the stuff we've seen from in the past month, but I'm digressing. So yeah, that's pretty much in call. And then once the ball gets out of the middle, you can't really argue with it. I used to work with somebody who's a media manager at Kilmarnock, and I messaged him during the game. I was about the penalty when your goalkeeper made some save, and he messaged me back going, "Yes, what did Joe right before it?" Which kind of just summed up there. It's just it's everything kind of. I mean, the one thing I think people are arguing about is more the red card, because I think the kind of some people don't. The rules are a bit on these type of things, but at the end of the day, it is still denying a goal scoring opportunity. We had a similar one go our way in the St Mirren game where Stephen Davis was the caretaker manager. There was a red card for the handball there. It's the exact same thing. So yeah, I think it's absolutely done spot on.
I mean,
Well.
I'll come to Gary in a second about that, because there's something that I picked up with the commentary that I'd like his sort of views on. But Davey, anything you want to add to that? What was your thinking? What was your thoughts behind that? Were you confident that we were going to get the penalty?
No, I wasn't confident we were going to get the penalty because there was still the offside or not offside. So you're thinking, what's going to happen here is that they're going to make a decision on the offside. First of all, once we're by that, then after they decided that it wasn't offside, it's onside, and then the penalty is a formality for me, and it's a red card because it's stopping a goal, not a goal scoring opportunity, a goal. So that it's fairly straightforward for me. It's that it has to go. I think it's a touch unfortunate, to be honest, and you would be not complaining bitterly, but I think you'd be cursing your luck when you lose a player for that, because I mean, did he intentionally stop it from going in the goal? Did he do it intentionally? I would suggest no, but he did do it, so he pays the penalty for that, and literally pays the penalty, and he's off the pitch. So I think the referees got that one. They've had plenty of time to look at it and think about it. So if they're going to get those decisions wrong, God help us. What's the point of the whole thing?
I mean, I personally thought we could add 2 penalties out of it. I thought Sterling got cleaned out, and then the handball as well. And as Stephen has said there, Tab gets a lot of stick from people, but I personally thought it was a decent penalty, and it was a really good save from the keeper. I think you've got to just give credit where it's due, So yeah, Gary, on the red card, and I think this is where it's really interesting. Listen to the commentary. You had Kenny Miller saying I think it's a harsh red card. And then that plays into the fans or plays into the public, where if you've got any semblance of knowledge of the rules, you know that's a red card. The ball's going in the net, whether it's intentional or not.
Yeah.
You're getting a red card. Is that fair, or is there times where it might not be, where that situation might not be a red card?
It really depends. It's only Joe Wright knows if that's intentional or not. So you can only really look at the actions. So for me, looking at it, his arm's out to his side, almost right angled at the time I think it connects with the ball. It's not by his side, it's not by his hip. So he could do more to get his arm out of the way. Whether he's off balance or not, it's hard to say. But you can only look at what you can see. His arm's extended out from his body and it's stopping a goal. Therefore, it's a red card. And I do understand you get a lot of ex-players saying red cards are harsh because they've played the game and they know it could equally have been them in that similar position. So they're looking at it from a position of empathy rather than the actual technicalities of the rules. Now, there's plenty of rules out there that we don't like as referees, but it's not us that make them, it's IFAB. So like the celebrating, taking your top off and that, I don't want to be booting people for that. But if someone does it, I've got to, and in that situation, it's a clear red card.
So, I mean, hypothetically, obviously, but the own goal by Tav came off his hand and went in. Mm-hmm. And I've seen people commenting, well, why wasn't he sent off? And I said, well, the ball went in the net. It's fairly straightforward. But had that not gone in, Tav would have been likely of sent off. Is that?
No, I'd say no, because
no. All right, okay.
If you switch about, so if you see the Joe Wright one, if that ends up in the net, then that would be a goal getting checked for offside. That wouldn't actually be a penalty decision, even though he's flung his arm out. So he's kind of almost getting away with one because it's went in the net anyway. Where they differ, I think, is with Tav. His arm's by his side. It's not extended. It's not out from his body. And if you watched the way, I think it says that Matty Kennedy that scores the goal, mm-hmm. He mishits it. Somehow he manages to hit it with his standing foot. And that's what sort of deceives Butland and puts it back into the area where it hits off Tav. So there's no real expectation for him to expect the ball to be there. So I'd say it's definitely a penalty if the ball doesn't end up in the net, if he manages to clear it or something like that. But I wouldn't say red card because it's not deliberately stopping a goal. The ball's actually travelling away from goal as well at the time. His touch with his hand is what actually puts it into the net.
So
that ball's not going to end up in the net until it hits Tavernier. Exactly. Then it ends up in the net. So where it's not the case with the Kilmarnock player. The Kilmarnock player, the ball was going in the net and his arm stopped it going in the net. That's not the case with Tavernier.
Yeah. So just very quickly, in the comments, Matt Gunner has said Tav's missed. So very quick, Tav's missed 5 penalties this season. Are we looking at a new penalty taker, Davey? That's what Matt Gunner's asking. What are you saying?
Absolutely not. If we get a penalty on Saturday, you know who's taking it. It's James Tavernier. So we're not going there because that's just a rod for our back. If we were to change penalty kick takers in that situation, there would be blood in the wall. If we were to give it to Dessers and Dessers missed, that would just be horrible. No, we've relied on Tavernier. He's bailed us out so many times. He's going to miss penalties. Of course he is. He's human. So, but we're not going to change now. It's maybe change at the end of the season. We can have a rethink the summer. There's only a handful of games to go. Now's not the time because that would just, if that one went wrong, it would be horrible. We'd just start blaming one another. Who said that? Whose idea was that? To change, the penalty taker? No, absolutely not. We have to stay with it.
Yeah, Stephen, any views on that, or Tav stays on penalties?
Yeah, I think it's not the time to change it. I mean, I can understand changing it in the summer, potentially looking at it if it was early in the season, potentially changing it. But we're talking about the biggest game of the season, definitely now the biggest game of the season, with a squad of players who have been, slated for so many years for not having mental bottle, and then we're talking about taking penalties off of the one guy in our squad who's shown in all firm games that he's got a bit of bottle at times offensively, we'll go offensively before people crucify me. I know he had a horror show last month, but going forward with the penalties and the free kicks, sometimes he doesn't shy away. So he's the one guy in the team you kind of think he's got the bottle to definitely do it. We do have good penalty takers in the squad. Diamondi's got a good penalty on him, from what I've told. Catwell could probably take a penalty, but again, he's your skipper, and he is the guy that's done it in these Old Firm games so often. So yeah, he's got to take it if one comes up.
Excellent. No, yeah. Just another incident that happened in the first half, Gary, that I'm interested to get your view on. Where a Kilmarnock player ran into the referee and he's stopped the game and given them the drop ball. Now, I've been watching football for many, many years, and I genuinely can't remember ever seeing that happening. There was an incident up in Dundee earlier in the season where ball was played into a Dundee player. He's ran into the ref. Rangers have got the ball, gone up and scored. And I think it's the Dundee manager, Tony Docherty, was making something of it after the game.
Yeah.
But as I say, that's something I've never seen before. Is that a rule? What was the referee?
Mr. Dickinson likes Ibrox for drop balls, because I think he was the one on the Hibs game a wee while ago. They had so many in the first half as well. No, obviously we know the one with the ball hitting the ref, but an opponent or a player running into the referee, there's no obligation to stop the game. You're part of the game, so these collisions will happen from time to time if everyone's watching the ball or watching anything else. I don't know quite why he stopped it. And then additionally, I don't know why he's given the ball to Kilmarnock after that. I've not seen it, to be fair. I'm just hearing it second hand. I've not actually seen a clip of it. But from what it sounds like, Rangers were in possession. Kilmarnock players come to challenge and he runs into the referee and it stops the game, gives drop ball Kilmarnock. For me, I wouldn't be stopping the ball. I wouldn't be stopping the game, sorry. And if I felt just a bit of compassion that I blocked a guy from making a challenge, I'd certainly be giving the ball back to Rangers in that scenario, who were in possession of the ball anyway. You can't assume that Kilmarnock player was about to win the ball. And I'm assuming that's what he's done here. But like you say, I don't quite know what's going on. I think there's quite a lot happened in that first half in terms of all the VAR stops, and it's quite a lot of incidents for 145 minutes of football. I don't know if he's just a little bit flustered and his head's gone for a wee split second. That's the only thing.
Gary, can I come in there, Gary, and you maybe can educate me here, because to my eternal shame, I mean, I'm not. I don't think I'm 100%. Clearly, from what I watched at the game on Sunday, I'm clearly not up to speed and what the referee's options are here. Because why does the referee drop the ball and then ensure that Kilmarnock take possession of it? Does he not just drop the ball and the two teams contest it? Why does he have to give the ball to a club?
Nah, David, we drop balls nowadays. It's come in maybe 2-3 years ago where they're all unchallenged now. So whoever's getting the drop ball, it's decided. It's not a 50-50 anymore. And the rules be they've got 4 seconds basically unchallenged. So essentially, someone can either stand there and let the Kilmarnock player do what he wants with it for 4 seconds, or typically if you're referee, you're using a bit of common sense, you get them to back off so they're not tempted to swing about at it. What, for me, again, I heard this second hand, there was 2 different players tried to take the ball and it got called back both times. So again, that's really untidy. You would expect professional players would know they can't do that, so the fault's probably on the Rangers player the first time. But beyond that, you'd explain the situation and make sure it's clear so it doesn't happen again. The fact it's happened again sort of plays into the fact the referee's probably, his head's gone a little bit and he's just needing in at half-time to reset himself. But just going forward, Davey, drop ball for whoever's the team last in possession of the ball when the whistle goes. And if it's in the 18-yard box, it goes to the keeper every time, regardless of who had the ball. Aye.
The Rangers.
Yeah, I think on the... I think Dessers took the ball on the first one. On the second one, if I recall it rightly, I think the ball it bounced twice and the Kilmarnock player wasn't making any sort of movement towards the ball. Mm-hmm. So Campbell's nipped in and taken it. And if you say we've got 4 seconds and he's not waited 4 seconds, but I say it was just a really bizarre... It was a bizarre thing. I say watch football for.
Sorry, Tom. I've had a brain fart myself. There, it's not 4 seconds. It's 4 yards space.
4 yards.
Aye. So I'm having a brain fart. I've got a cheek to talk about ref. Aye. So yeah, 4 yards, and essentially it's unchallenged. Usually when you drop the ball, the players will play the pass straight away. You know, so it's not really an issue. If Kilmarnock are trying to play on it a little bit, you'd have to have the warning with them after the first time it happens. But again, untidy to let it happen.
Yeah. And that'll just, I mean, well, we've obviously got Gary on. There's no Scottish referees going to the Euros this summer. Is that a surprise to you, Stephen? What's your thoughts on that?
I was told to some mates tonight after the game, I don't think it's a shock at all. I don't think that it's typical that we talk about it when they had a nice banner in the Union Bears about our outgoing First Minister and his performances and his roles. I think that if a Scottish referee got to the Euros, it'd be completely unjustified because they've not been. I think somebody said to me the other day when it was announced that Colin was announced for the Old Firm, was like, yeah, Colin's been announced. And I'm like, I don't really care because he's just as bad as the rest of them. They're not particularly great. None of them stand out. So yeah, you need to work, like with any job, you need to be deserving of these big shots. And yeah, they've just not just in Rangers games. There's so many. I mean, look at all that list of VAR decisions that were wrong. You shouldn't have that many faults, you know. So the problem, I think after the time as well, sometimes with the refs, because I sound like I'm just being really anti-ref here. It's not just with the refs. I think sometimes the governing bodies at Scotland need to take a bit of, you know, role in this one to try and, you know, come out, you know, and try and make things better. And I think they just try and protect them and shield them all the time, like it's a young child or something like that they don't want to get hurt. Like, yeah, it's just they need the fact that this a big major tournament that Scotland's going to and they've got no representation there. It just shows how bad it is.
Yeah, it's not, like I say, it's not good. What's your thoughts, Davey, on the refereeing in general in Scotland? I mean, there's been I watch the Premier League as well, and there's been lots of comments about refereeing down there and decisions, etc. But up in Scotland, it seems to be hyped up even more. Do you think it's because there has been a bit of a title race this year and everything's under the magnifying glass a bit more? Or do you think that referees do need a bit more work, need a bit more maybe training, whatever it might be?
I think possibly they just need a bit more help. I don't think there's only one name that I can think of who I would write down as a cheat, right? And that's Father Clancy. So other than him, I would say, you know, the guys are savable. So I would be doing, you know, my utmost if I were the SFA in terms of, you know, in terms of training and if we could find the money, you know, where we could make this a professional job, you know, for at least the top dozen referees, so that we put enough resource into it for these guys to work, you know, on their fitness, but obviously in terms of, you know, their reviewing of the games, because practice makes perfect, as it does in any walk of life. So I think the more time that they could dedicate to doing this, I think the more authority that they would carry, I think the better they would be at it, and the whole thing becomes a virtuous cycle. Because I think that it's just that question. We're asking guys, you know, to do this almost as a sideline from their main job. And there's so much pressure, there's so much at stake on it. You know, you cannot help but feel, you know, slightly sorry for the guys, you know, the situation. You wonder why they do it at all, to be honest. But I think they need help, and we need referees. We're never going to get away from that, you know, and I think if we can, you know, get better at the VAR, then that will be another tool that we can bring to, you know, to improve referees' performances. But I think, you know, you should hear the language I fire at most of our referees. I mean, I think we empty lunatic asylums to get some of these guys. But I think it's not. We shouldn't be castigating these guys. We should be trying to help them, and we need to put the level of resource that's required. Obviously, that requires league sponsors at a certain level. You know, the clubs to kind of stump up funds and maybe forego some funds to put the resource in place to get professional referees. But I think if we want to improve the thing, that's where we need to get to. We just need to find a way to do it.
No, excellent. I mean, Gary, you do it. What are your thoughts? I mean, as football fans, you know, we will blame referees. We won't have a go at the striker who's missed 5 1-on-1s or the goalkeeper who's chucked one in the net. It'll be down to the referee. So I mean, what's your thoughts on how referees in Scotland can, I don't want to say get better, but so that they can start representing the country again at major tournaments? And it used to be the joke that what do you call a Scotsman at the World Cup, and the answer was a referee, but we can't even say that anymore, can we?
No.
So what's your thoughts on it, on what needs to change, or or money needs to be invested?
It's hard to say. I don't necessarily agree it's money, right? Obviously, because England's our closest neighbours, we look at them being full-time and you think that's the solution. But there's plenty of guys going to be at the Euros or the next World Cup that are part-time in their own leagues. There's very few leagues that are actually full-time now. I think, the guy that's Danny McKaylee, one of the Dutch guys, who's quite the top guys, always in around about the semi-finals and finals, all these tournaments. He's a police officer in Holland, so it's not really getting in the way of his performances to be getting to that level. So I don't know if it's a convenient excuse we use in Scotland. I don't see how me being full-time would make me spot a penalty any easier. Fitness-wise, it could help probably a little bit, but the guys at the top level, they're all doing the same fitness tests as anyone else, as Michael Oliver in England are doing, and they're all getting the same sort of performance ratings. So fitness isn't the issue. It's so hard to put your finger on. Like, every level game I've done, you get shouted at by the fans. During the game, you'll get a lot of players playing up, so the fans get in the refs back, and then after the game, they'll talk to you and say, fair enough, by the way, it's just part of the game, to try and get in your head a little bit. That happens. I don't know if Scottish refs are as bad as we think. I think everything's a goldfish bowl in Scotland, and there's not a lot else going on, so that every little incident's magnified 10 times compared to if it's in a Crystal Palace v Aston Villa game down south, for example. I've been to quite a few Premiership games, and I don't believe the standard's much better in terms of reffing. I've seen horrendous calls, and I've seen the ref struggling to keep up the play, and these are guys that are supposedly full-time. And we have a thing called body shape, where the observers check your body shape, check it looks the part that you look as if you belong in that field. There's plenty of guys in England carrying a hell of a lot of extra weight, and they're full time. Their only job is to be fit for those games on the weekend or the midweek games. I'm kind of giving a bit of a politician answer here because I genuinely don't know. I don't know how things improve. Obviously, this season the standard's not been great. And I think a lot of that comes into VAR and just not quite understanding the process and what should be a VAR call and what shouldn't. And there's potentially a little bit of laziness creeping in terms of not wanting to make the calls, thinking that VAR is there as a backup. I don't think it's conscious. I think it's subconscious. Because I know these guys. I know quite a lot of them to talk to, the guys that will do the Old Firm games and everything. And I don't believe any of them are dishonest. I genuinely don't. I just think there's a lot of media hype in every single game up here. And I think subconsciously it can impact, whether it's just being scared to make the wrong call because it's going to be plastered all over the newspaper for the next week. And then, is my missus going to get grief or my kid's going to get grief at school? That kind of thing. Subconsciously, I think it just must play their heads a little bit, and that's what leads to some of the sort of strange decisions, let's say, you've seen this season. But how do you improve it? I'd be on a lot more money than I am now, mate, if I knew that.
I mean, I'm conscious of the time, and we'll be wrapping up fairly soon. But just on this bit about the referees, I totally 100% agree with you there, Gary. I say I watch a lot of the Premiership, and there is a lot of what you would deem bad calls, but I think a lot of it gets hyped up for the media to have controversy for the next few days, to have something to report on Sky Sports News or on their ref watch on the Monday morning. So I do agree with you. I don't think it's as bad as what is made out, but it's certainly, I think fans just look for someone to blame, and instead of, like I say, blaming their multi-million-pound striker for missing chance after chance, the easiest thing is to blame the referees. So we'll sort of come to wrapping up now, chaps. With we're not going to be on the preview pod on Friday, So just quickly, I'll get your thoughts really for the game on Saturday. So you touched on it earlier, Davey. You were feeling pretty confident. What are you? Obviously, you want to see the 3 points and a good win. But what are you wanting to see from Rangers on Saturday?
Well, I mean, I think we've been to this ground often enough to know that, we know exactly what we're walking into. So I think in a way, there's almost the expectation is probably on them to go win it now, isn't it? It is for me anyway. But so I'm thinking, maybe this is as much a free hit as you're ever going to get at Parkhead. Turn roll up and say, do you know what? We're going to just have a right good go at them. So this is winner takes all. It's going to be decided on Saturday. So if we've got the bottle for it, and if we crumble, then as we have done, our track record of late, at Parkhead is not very good. I would say, turn up. Let's have I think we could have an honest conversation with one another in the dressing room before we go out. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to leave nothing in this dressing room. We're going to give all on that pitch. Let's go. If we come up short, Christ, there are ways of doing it, but let's not go out and go out with a whimper. Let's go out and go toe-to-toe with these guys and see where that takes us. And if Rangers do that, then I'll forgive them no matter the result. But I just don't want them to fold like I've seen them do, in a few occasions there when they turn up and just there's fear in their eyes and they just don't match them. So as long as we do that, we give a good account of ourselves. That's all I can ask, and I'll have my fingers crossed that we can come out of there. I think if we can come out there with a victory, the momentum immediately swings to us, and how this whole thing ends up. So I think it would be it could be a very big day for us on Saturday if we can get the result and get out of there. So
yes, Stephen, this season, the way some people are going on, you would think Celtic have steamrolled us this season, but we lost 1-0 at Ibrox, we lost 2-1 at Parkhead at New Year, where we had Balogun sent off, and we were actually the stronger team going into the last 15-20 minutes. Unlucky probably not to get a draw there. And then we drew 3-3 at Ibrox just a couple of weeks ago. I think a lot of wins been taken out of the fan sales with the results against Ross County and Dundee. Same question really to yourself. What are you wanting to see on Saturday from Rangers?
Bit of heart, a bit of desire. First of all, I think that's something which often labelled against this team, especially those two games you mentioned. They don't show as much, especially in games at Parkhead. So I think that's a first thing. I think if they go out there, show a bit of desire, show a bit of fight, and don't come up short, I think they get a bit more credit than they would obviously with those games we mentioned, because they just looked like they didn't have a clue what they were doing and they just didn't look like they wanted it. So I think that's the first thing. I think we need to kind of go toe-to-toe with them in the midfield. I mean, as we mentioned of it, this season Celtic have not been a brilliant team, nowhere near to the level they were when Ange Postecoglou was in charge the last couple of seasons, where they looked a really, really exciting team to watch, for the sits. But they've not looked exactly the same this year. I think sometimes they're made to look good, so I think we need to put the pressure on them. Callum McGregor especially, I mean, how many games can we count over the last few years that we've afforded Callum McGregor the space of the stadium to do what he wants, get in his face, get in about him, and make sure they can't dictate from there. Because if you stop them there, put the press on them, they can make mistakes. Liam Scales, people say he's had a brilliant season, looks like a bomb scare all the time. So any of the centre-backs, Carter Vickers looks a bomb scare at points. Carter Vickers makes them all look so much better. So I think to do that would be handy. And something that we've just been criminal of at times, we need to keep the back door shut as well. We need to be so much more focused at the back. The amount of game, I think if you take out the dead rubber from last season, the final offer of last season, we've kept a clean sheet. The last time we kept a clean sheet against Celtic on that game was the 1-0 win in the 2021 with the COVID with Steven Gerrard. It was his last game as manager, but obviously wasn't at the dugout because he was in COVID. So that's not good. That's nearly 3 years, one clean sheet and a dead rubber. They need to focus, they need to keep that point of it. And if they can do that, gives the guys at the front end the chance if they can get something. So if they can keep the back door shut with him with a big chance. But again, it's a big if, especially if Borna's playing. Ben Davis and John Suter, they played here last season and they had an absolute disaster show. So obviously Taven in recent weeks, so we can't really rely on Butland all the time, especially if we get guys like Kyogo who need one chance. But so if they can do those things, then we're in with a chance. But yeah, it's given our recent record at Parkhead, you can understand why so many people are a bit apprehensive.
And Gary, your thoughts, and do you think that come sort of 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, we're going to have a nice Rangers win without talking about the referee and some sort of made-up controversy, or do you think that's just pie in the sky?
We're always perfect, Tomo. We're always perfect. There'll be no referee controversy. No, I think the wise man would probably be on Celtic if you're a betting man. That's just because Rangers' recent record at Parkhead is really poor. And what they need is to put a full 90-minute performance in, because it's been too sporadic. So the last game, it was the second half, and then the game before that at Parkhead was the last 20 minutes or so once Balogun got sent off. I've never seen a complete 90-minute performance by Rangers against a Celtic team. And I think that's the key. And to do that, I think they need to match them in midfield, because that's the area they lose out on all the time. You've got O'Reilly, McGregor and Hatate in there versus usually Lundstrom and one other. And they just get played round and they can't match runners. That puts pressure on the defence, and then everything else becomes exposed and they can't get a foothold in the game until Celtic start dropping off, and then Rangers get the momentum. So I would be playing a middle three, in there. I'd be taking the risk with Barisic at left back and putting Sterling in there. And then you keep Lundstrom, Diomande either side of him. I'd be sacrificing the left back position, because I don't think Celtic have a massive threat down that side that Barisic couldn't deal with. It was always a Bada that terrorised them. It's not there anymore. He's competent as much as people. He's got his detractors. He's a competent defender. He's an international defender. He can deal with the occasion. Just control that midfield, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right there. Get Sterling inside and bolster that midfield. So I'm conscious of the time. It's been a good chat tonight, gents. So we'll just finish up with your final thoughts. Anything you want to say, and we'll start yourself, Gary. Thank you again for coming on. It's always appreciated giving up your time.
No worries, mate.
Thank you.
Just on the question of VAR, you hear people talking about getting rid of it all the time and they're fed up of it. I think I heard you guys quoting how many penalties Rangers have had this season off the back of VAR interventions. Where Rangers would be this season without it, I'd much rather take a little bit longer and it'd be a bit untidy and get the correct call than go away feeling cheated for blatant decisions not given. So any Rangers fans watching, I would just urge them to remember that ultimately correct decisions are made most of the time with VAR.
No, 100% agree with you, Gary. Stephen, again, thank you for coming on, mate. Pleasure having you. Any final words before we finish?
No, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, hopefully when it comes to mid-Saturday afternoon, things are a bit more pleasant. We can maybe look ahead to the final week of this season, because obviously if we do get that win on Saturday and then go on to beat Dundee on Tuesday at Ibrox, swings the momentum massively, because they need to go to that plastic pitch in Kilmarnock and try and get a result. So yeah, fingers and toes crossed that we can get something on it. And yeah, big hat trick for Cyril Dessers, that bit story. Oh my God, could you imagine could you imagine social media? If he gets one, I felt for him for that game at Ibrox when that goal got disallowed, because the place went mental for him. It would have been such a great thing for him. But yeah, I'll take anybody scoring. Take Ben Davis scoring again. Why not?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a stuff for dreams, that, Stevie. Stuff for dreams. Davey, if you can let the viewers know where they can find you on a regular basis, and any final thoughts, please, mate.
Yeah, well, obviously you get me on the Gallant Few from time to time, with when I can make it. Sometimes, the Sunday games, if I'm not back in time, then I don't make the Sunday one, but I'll be on Thursday or Sunday, so you can hear more of the same. Join us on Sunday nights at 8:30, and Thursday nights at 8:30 when we'll preview the game, and Sunday we'll review it. So yeah, it's more of the same. Obviously, we're just passionate Rangers fans, much as we are. But it was good to hear Gary's view of the world, because obviously we lay into these referee guys from time to time, and it's unusual for us to hear some common sense, and the other side of it, because I do take the point, other than the one guy that I mentioned, that these guys are doing their level best. As for Saturday, I'm just hoping that we're 4 games from immortality here. So could you imagine how we will review this, in a couple of years' time, if in these 4 games we manage to pull it off? And Philip, come on, and as Stephen's just said, this is surely the motivation for Cyril Dessers, is he can shoot himself to absolute superstardom in 4 games here if he wants to take the opportunity, and I, for one, will be right behind him. Mm-hmm.
But Kyle will laugh at the yes, wouldn't it, if he managed to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just my final thoughts is I'm going to be massively positive, and I've been saying it for the last week or so. We're going to win 2-0, spank Dundee by 5-0, and then win it on goal difference against Hearts. That's my prediction. But take Saturday first. But thank you very much again, gents, for coming on and giving up your time. It's been a great chat, and thank you to everyone in the comments. Having a little look at them. Sorry we couldn't get more in, but it has been, people have been talking in the comments and really enjoying the show. So like and subscribe to the channel. We're getting the subscribers up now, so keep telling your friends about us. And we are the people, and we will see you on Friday night. Thank you very much.
Do we sing at this point, Tom, or do you want me to sing something?
Yeah, I think my backing man hasn't turned us off here yet, so we'll just I think we'll just click leave, and then it should shut off. So see you later, gents. Thank you. Bye bye.
Gents. Bye bye.